immigration levels. Now let's speak for a different angle on this with Professor Alan Sked. Alan is the founder of UKIP. Afternoon to you, Alan.
Good afternoon.
Remind us when that was, when UKIP began. Seems many moons ago now.
It began, actually it's the Anti-Federalist League in 1991.
Wow.
And it changed its name to UKIP in 1993.
What was the reason for beginning? What was your thinking when you started UKIP? What is it you wanted to change? What is it that wasn't happening?
I'd been a founder member of the Bruges Group with Mrs. Thatcher, and we've been trying to move the Tory party against the Maastricht Treaty. It was eventually signed when Thatcher was assassinated by the Tories and John Major came in. He was obviously pro-European, but the idea of starting a new party was to put pressure on the Conservative Party to come out of the European Union.
And of course, largely UKIP and latterly Reform have kind of existed within that same space. But of course, there are notable differences now. UKIP do still exist. Reform UK is a different party. What do you make of...
Sorry, I left UKIP in 1997. I take no responsibility.
No, indeed.
What happened to it after that?
Indeed. And well, not a lot, I think, is probably the short answer, although it would be argued that UKIP was still responsible for Brexit.
It can be argued. It was certainly one of the factors leading up to Brexit. I mean, I blame the Liberal Democrats because after, if you can give me just a second, after May lost the majority and she was negotiating with Europe, the referendum had gone through. We'd voted for some kind of Brexit, but she tried 3 times to get a deal which was very much more pro-European than one that happened, and that was rejected by Parliament. Now, it wouldn't have been, and it would still have gone through under what was called the sort of Crown influence system, but one Liberal Democrat, Gina Miller, had gone to the Supreme Court, which has said that Parliament must have the final say. Yeah. So our deal was rejected. And then after that, Joe Swinney, who was then the Lib Dem leader, said that there couldn't be a coalition under Corbyn to reject Brexit, which is what the majority in Parliament in that state wanted to do, because she thought she might become Prime Minister. So she told Corbyn there couldn't be a Labour-led coalition to kill Brexit. And there had to be a general election, and that general election was, of course, won by Boris.
Indeed. In terms of where we are today, what do you make of the current political landscape? What are your thoughts on Reform UK and the unstoppable political machine that is Nigel Farage?
Well, I mean, I knew Farage through UKIP. I'm not a fan. I'm not a supporter. When I knew him, the person I knew was A, fairly stupid, B, an alcoholic, and C, a fascist. So for all of these reasons...
That was your interpretation of him, of course. I think it would be fair to say that he would refute all of that, as would many people who know him and work with him.
Can I sustain that argument? For example, we threw him out, myself and the National Executive of UKIP expelled him from the party in 1997 for stupidity, really, because after the 1997 general election, he started a campaign and actually instituted a public inquiry as to why UKIP hadn't won the 1997 general election, which was ludicrous because we had no money, no coverage really from television or the press. We had the 3 major parties plus the James Goldsmith's referendum party to fight. Why he thought we should have won, it was the first time we'd ever stood as a party. Why we should have won a general election, I don't know. The sane members of the National Executive just thought he was mad, so we threw him out for bringing the party into disrepute. So when I say he was stupid, that seems to be evidence of it.
Has he not, whether you like him or not, and I was always aware that you weren't necessarily a fan, has he not somehow, though, sealed and accelerated the very dream you began, which was to have an independent country that's a little bit more robust on things like immigration and sits proudly outside of the EU?
Yes, we've got a country that's outside of the EU, an issue, but Farage was obsessed by it, and he still is obsessed by it. But yes, we got Brexit. Unfortunately, Boris had no idea what that meant. He had
True.
no plans for after Brexit.
Yeah.
He was a disastrous prime minister. It was all cronyism, and he had run the country into the ground economically. So the Tory party has suffered enormously since, and we are where we are. They're unelectable now.
Do you think, I mean, the Tory party indeed, I mean, they're going down the pan. We can see that coming. Is Nigel Farage likely, do you sense, to win a seat in Parliament? And if he and others that are standing for reform, in doing so, are they likely to hand Labour an even bigger victory than the one they're projected to get?
Well, I don't know whether he'll win in Clacton or not. I know certainly that the intervention of Reform Party candidates in Tory constituencies is mathematically and logically designed to undercut the Tory vote, and therefore the logical result of that would be a larger Labour majority. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But the question is, if the Tory party goes down to 100 seats or something like that, Reform, I don't think will get any. I don't know if they'll get any seats at all. They may just get a handful. But under these circumstances, Farage seems to think he's the leader of a reunited right after the next general election and a Tory debacle, and that he will turn the right into some kind of movement in his own image. And that worries me dreadfully because I don't like the image, as I've said to you.
But would the wider, I mean, if you park Nigel Farage, and I know many people will say, well, they are so intrinsically linked, reform and all of that it stands for, and Farage, you can't separate them. But there's a lot of people out there that share the sentiment and the anxiety and the concerns that he raises. Is it not possible that with a merging of the Conservative Party, what is left of it after this election, that some kind of hybrid could not come out of this?
Oh, it's possible, but I don't think it's likely. I mean, I think the Tories will still remain a larger force both in Parliament and the country, and that Farage will not be attractive to them. I hope he's not attracted to them. I'm not quite clear what he would do if he was Prime Minister. I think he's such a polarising, divisive and toxic figure that the country would be almost on the brink of civil war if he got in, because he would be prepared to do extremist things which other parties wouldn't do. I think he has to be pressed very hard on how his immigration policy is going to be implemented. I mean, he's talking about reducing the number of migrants by hundreds of thousands. How is he going to achieve that? Does he actually have plans to get rid of foreigners, as he would put it, who are already in Britain? I mean, I'm not sure. He is, to me, a figure who could lead large sections of the British people in a direction we've never been before.
We will watch with interest. He speaks well of you, apparently, Alan, by the way.